Hello and welcome to Spectator TV. I'm James Heale and I'm joined today by Ben Habib, the former MEP, who this week has launched his own political party, Advance UK. Ben, thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure, James. Thank you for having me on.
So tell us, why this party and why now?
So, by the party, reform carried the hopes, I think, of those of us who want to return power to the United Kingdom, see borders enforced, immigration brought down, regulations cut, taxes cut, and so on. We were holding a flame for reform. But sadly, it would appear that reform is without, I would say, a settled political philosophy. And I think you and I discussed this a few months ago when we met at the art conference. You know, Nigel Farage is reform, reform is Nigel Farage. We often hear that said, and I think it's true. And reform seems to dance to his mood. And you can't have a political party effectively making policies on the hoof, by the emotional or other disposition of one individual. And you certainly can't have a political party that is dependent entirely on one man. And I had been banging the drum for the democratization of reform so that checks and balances and processes could be introduced into the party to ensure that it was capable of forming a proper government if it were to win the election. And notwithstanding what Farage and Youssef might say, they haven't democratized the party. It's without those checks and balances and the ability, therefore, to make proper policy and attract proper people into the party. And I have known for some time that a new political force is needed, but there wasn't, I don't think, room for it. But two things have happened that gave me the indication that actually now is the time to do something. The first was the way that they treated Rupert Lowe, and I think that was particularly revealing for the public. You know, this is Reform UK, the party in which you're putting your hopes. This is how it treats one of its senior most people. And then the second thing that I think has now become very, very clear is that the two-party system is broken. One can't say definitively that the Conservatives won't rediscover their Conservative DNA, but at the moment that two-party system is broken, and I think there is a gap, therefore, for a party with a proper political philosophy, with a proper body of people, a broad and deep body of people who can come together, create the policies that deliver the political philosophy, and then have the wherewithal to enact them when they get into government. And that is the purpose behind Advance UK.
I suppose so. It's interesting to see that you both launched your party at the same time that Rupert Lowe launched his on Monday. He launched Restore Britain. Isn't that, in a sort of nutshell, the problem here, which is that we've got too many parties, too many movements, and no one, frankly, can work together?
So Rupert and I get on very well. There's absolutely no issue between Rupert and me. And the important thing to say is that his is a movement, not a party. So there's no mechanism by which to vote for it. And I think he is pulling on Conservatives, Reform members, and perhaps even other, members of other political parties. Rupert and I did a long discussion about the political party that I've just launched. I wanted him, in fact, to be leader of the party. But the view he took was that he could do more good, he thought, through a movement than in a political party. And I'm of the firm belief that the only way you can really make an impact politically is through the ballot box. It's a democracy, after all, and it's votes that count. And so I think the party is the way forward. And I think this is a good time to be doing it 4 years out from a general election. You know, deliver this political philosophy, as I describe it, into the psyche of the British electorate, and then let them decide.
And what's the kind of reaction been? It's 2 days since you launched. You obviously said you're aiming for 30,000 members. What are the key metrics by which you're judging success and growth?
Well, it's been remarkable. We've had over 8,000 donors and members in the last 2 days alone. So that's a phenomenal achievement, really. Overnight, we've gone to 8,000, and of course, there's still a way to go to get to 30. But please bear in mind that Reform started the last general election in 2024 with 30,000 members, which is why I set that as my marker. Because with 30,000 members, I basically know that I can launch a national campaign. It's enough people. I will have the numbers to mount the ground game that's required nationally. It'll be a bare minimum, but that's why I set it as my minimum hurdle to get going as a complete political party. When we hit 30,000, then we'll apply to the Electoral Commission for full registration. And I've also said I will donate £100,000 to the party to make it utterly clear that I'm, standing shoulder to shoulder with the members who've put their faith in Advance UK.
We started this discussion by talking about Reform UK. I just wonder, Ben, when you look back, you were one of the deputy leaders. David Bull was a deputy leader as well. Nigel Farage comes back after the election. He then replaces you both. Richard Tice becomes deputy leader. David Bull stays in the party. You left. I mean, is there any sense of you that you wished you'd stayed in the party and potentially had a different role there?
No, not at all. I didn't leave immediately after being sacked as deputy leader. I resigned in November. I was sacked, I think, on the 11th of July, and I resigned on the 28th of November. But during that period, that was the time when I mounted the campaign to democratize reform, because I knew that left to his own devices, the party left to Farage's devices would not yield the results that the nation needs. And I fought that campaign very hard. But sometime during the course of November, Farage did a number of things. He declared, for example, that he wasn't concerned about the rate of demographic change in the country, that he wasn't in favor of deporting all illegal migrants, that he was putting forward candidates like Charlie Mullins, who was an avowed and remains an avowed Remainer, and so on and so forth. And I just thought, what the hell is going on here? This party's completely lost its way. And that's when I resigned. I should add, by the way, James, that it's not the first time that Nigel Farage and I have had fundamental differences of political belief. I'm a firm believer in the union of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and you might recall I fought for Northern Ireland fought for the removal of the Northern Ireland Protocol, which has put this border down the RSC. I wanted that RSC border gone. And Nigel Farage is on the record saying he thinks a united Ireland is inevitable. And in a sense, you might think that's a bit of an esoteric, discussion to hang one's hat on, difference to hang one's hat on. But it goes to the heart of the differences, I think, between Farage and me. I can't make any case for setting aside the Acts of Union, the foundational constitutional act of this country, in the pursuit of some political aim. For me, anyone who aspires to be prime minister has to, at first and foremost, believe in the United Kingdom. And if you can't believe in the United Kingdom, I think you're fallen before you've even started.
And what do you see the role in cooperation going forward between your party and the movement led by Rupert Lowe? How much sort of cooperation and sort of discussion is going to be going on?
Well, Rupert is going to be launching, I believe he's going to be launching a number of petitions, a number of legal challenges outside the parliamentary system in order to hold the Labour government in check. And I will do my best to support him. I've joined his movement. I paid my £20 and I've become a member of his movement. And I donated to his gang rape inquiry as well. I've donated £5,000 to that. And I will be looking at the policies he comes out with very carefully and put them to our own people in the party, at the appropriate moment and discuss it. I mean, if he's doing a lot of intellectual work for us, great, and then we can do the work at the ballot box.
I wonder also, just a final question, Ben. I mean, when it comes to the next election, are you going to stand yourself as a candidate? But also, where do you intend to stand? And might it perhaps be Clacton?
So there's no point being a political party unless you do stand. And so the aim would be to stand everywhere. Where I personally stand, remains to be determined, I think.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today on Spectator TV.
Thank you.